Hey, let's have some fun with some Spurs lineups.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you all back. Follow me on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get a podcast. Pick a platform, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know where to go. Go subscribe right now. We also got a newsletter. It's in the description below if you're on the YouTube side of things. Click on it, completely free. It's a nice companion piece to Locked On Spurs. What are we talking about today? We're going to have some fun with lineups. We have a relatively okay sample size for the Spurs start of the season. What jumps out as far as starting units are together, just units together? Would you be surprised if Sohan and Wemby on the court may not be one of the better lineups? We're going to be talking about that and then get into you guys, the Locked On Spurs fans, and your comments you're leaving over at the YouTube page. It's been a while. I know. We're going to catch up with you guys. And what are you guys talking about? Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You want to go to Prize Picks right now. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA. Get yourself $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks run your game. Yeah. So now that we have somewhat of a sample size, we're starting to see maybe the bigger picture now. What works, what doesn't work as far as just units out there. It doesn't have to be a starting 5 unit. Could be the starting 5. It could be the second unit. It could be a mix of the two. But we're finding some interesting things about who's on the court, which units are better equipped on that floor to help the Spurs get a W. Obviously, Wemby's going to be in a lot of them. That makes absolute sense. So no shocker there. But there are some shocking units together. Now, keep this in mind. We are recording this show before last night's game versus the Thunder. Things may change a little bit. But at least heading into last night's Thunder game, there are some eye-opening stats, especially when it comes to Wemby and Sohan. So, if Sohan's going to be mentioned a lot, we got to bring in our next guest because he has a reputation of hating on Sohan every time he has a chance to talk bad about him. At least that's what the streets are saying. You know him, you love him. He's Michael Jimenez of the Alamo City Sportscast. He is back, everybody. Jimenez, I know you're chomping at the bit right now. You're going like this to just bag on Sohan, aren't you?
No, the streets are wrong, but man, I like Sohan, but it becomes one of those things about chemistry. So when you were talking about this topic, you were like, Jimenez, you're the one for this one, because we're going from the eye test to the numbers test, and now we have enough of a sample size.
Exactly. Now, just to make it very clear, everybody, we're not going to be just focusing on Sohan, but but his name might come up a lot, especially with Jimenez on board. And also considering that perhaps the Spurs need to, as the season moves forward, maybe consider a different unit out there, especially if games are tight or if they just want to stomp on teams from the get-go. So there's a lot of numbers we're going to be throwing at y'all, and of course the eye test right away. But Jimenez, I know you know the answer to this, but you out there that are watching right now, would you be surprised that a starting unit, or at least a unit, how's that, of Wemby and no Sohan is the better unit? The numbers say that exactly. Yes, Jimenez, you're drooling right now. Before we get into some of the numbers, why do you think that is? Why do you think a Wemby and Sohan pairing, along with the other 3 guys on the court with them, don't really mix well, at least according to the numbers?
Well, it's all about style. It's also about the efficiency of the offense at the time. I look at it this way. Sohan obviously is one of the best 5 players on the Spurs roster. But I think that Spurs fans think that if you're in the top 5, talent-wise, you should be a starter. That's not necessarily the case. It's the 5 pieces of the puzzle that go well together. And we're seeing a sample size not only of this season, but the end of last year in March when you saw Vassell and Sohan both go out with injury. We're seeing the sample size, and the numbers are different, man. And you look at it, I was crunching the numbers. Sohan and Wemby were on the team last year, obviously, but when Sohan went down with an injury, there were 6 games by which Wemby played without Sohan on the court. Okay, 6 games. Spurs went 3-3. This was a team that went 22-60. They were 3-3 when they didn't play with each other. Okay, Wemby went from averaging 21 points per game to 26.5. Had better 3-point accuracy, better field goal shooting percentage, more rebounds, was averaging 5 blocks per game,
Yeah.
and he was a better player without Sohan out there. I mean, we're talking about 21 points per game to 26.5.
Sure.
This season, there's been 7 games where they haven't played with each other. 3-4 record. Okay, not the greatest, but it's not bad. It's not terrible. He's gone from an 18 points per game, which is when they were together the first 6 games, to the 7 games where they played where they were not together. Wemby is now averaging close to 27 points per game. So last year went from 21 to 26.5. This year it's gone from 18 to nearly 27 points per game. And it's because offensively they're inefficient together. You take Sohan out of the game, they're not as good defensively. Yes, I understand that. He's a special defensive player. We're just pointing on the offensive side of the ball. They don't mix well together. We saw games earlier this season where Sohan was shooting the ball more often than Wemby. There should never be a game, ever be a game, in which Wemby is getting fewer shot attempts than Sohan. And we saw it game in and game out, and it's because there's just something about the two together offensively does not mix well.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. But then also, one thing we also need to talk about, Jeff, it's beyond that. You put Vassell's injuries into mix, and guess what?
Yeah.
Wemby does just as well without Vassell out there.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the most 5 efficient Spurs players out there. I'm not going to steal your thunder, no pun intended, from last night's game. But tell us who those 5 are, man.
Yeah. Well, look, before we get into the numbers, mouths to feed. With Sohan and his breakout season, he was becoming kind of an offensive guy, not just simply a defensive guy. And he was averaging double figures before the injury, and close to like 15, I believe. Yeah, 15, 18, around there. The point is, that was another mouth to feed. Vassell, the same thing. So there's only one basketball. That's why you've probably seen the numbers kind of get all screwy when it comes to the best starting units on the court. Now, we're going to go ahead and look at those numbers right now. By the way, these numbers are brought to you by Pivot Fade. By the way, great website. Jimenez, you got to go there right now. Great website. Go to Pivot Fade. Really good NBA number crunching website. So, brace yourself, everybody. This is the best lineup, at least, efficiency-wise, according to Pivot Fade, and it does not have Wemby and Sohan together. Would you be surprised to find out it is Castle, Champagnie, Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, Victor Wembanyama. Now, what stands out for that unit? There's only one major mouth to feed. That's it. They're not going to be calling plays for Champagnie, maybe a little bit here just to get a 3-shot. Chris Paul, he's a facilitator. Harrison Barnes, he knows his role. Castle, again, maybe he gets his number called a bit, but not as often as Wemby. You have one primary weapon on that court, and that's Wembanyama. Now, what do the numbers show? So this unit has played 76 minutes together. They're a plus 58. That is heads above the rest of all other starting units. Now, at least units. I gotta stop saying starting units. These are just units together.
Right.
So, what is the second best unit on the court for the Spurs? Would you be surprised it doesn't include Sohan and Wemby again, nor Devin Vassell, just like the first unit we mentioned? The second best one, they played 11 minutes together. Okay, so keep that in mind. Just 11 minutes. Keldon Johnson, Champagnie, Chris Paul, Wemby, Malachi Branham. Again, another common thread with the exception of Keldon. The third best, this is played 26 minutes together. And by the way, that second best, they're a plus 20. The third one is a plus 15, 26 minutes together. That's Keldon Johnson, Chris Paul, Barnes, Wemby, and Sohan. They're at a plus 15. So it's that third unit out there with Wemby, Sohan does come in as one of the better units. Nevertheless, I don't know if we should count that second grouping. They only played 11 minutes together. I kind of want to discount that one because 11 minutes is not enough to really put a finger on it. Maybe 26 minutes with the Wemby and Sohan. Do you think we should just eliminate that 11-minute one, Jimenez? Because just 11 minutes.
It's not even a full quarter.
Not even a full quarter, yeah.
But you look at that, Jeff. What do you see about that lineup there? Okay, this is not the first one, the Champagnie, Paul, Castle, Barnes, Wemby. You see them putting shooters around Wemby.
Yeah.
Harrison Barnes, a consistent three-point shooter. Julian Champagnie proving himself to be more consistent from three. You have them on either side. You have two ball facilitators there in Castle and CP3. They're both essentially point guards, right? So you have two players who could drive to the bucket. You have two players in the backcourt there who could drive to the bucket. You've got two players that could find Wemby. You got two players out there who could run the break. You've got shooters on either side, and that is a well-balanced lineup there for Victor Wembanyama, okay? This is not to bag on any other players like Devin Vassell or Jeremy Sochan. It just says that these pieces of the puzzle, they might not be the five best players on the team, talent-wise, but it's the five pieces of the puzzle that come together. We're talking Spurs Moneyball here. We're talking Spurs analytics is what we're doing here. And I was at the game a few nights ago last week, and I'm looking at my friend Alex, and I'm looking at him, and I said, and this exact lineup that you were talking about there, which was Castle, Champagny, Barnes, Wemby, and CP3. And I looked over at my friend Alex, and I said, tell me about this offense. What does this offense look like? And he looks at me and he goes, this is the best offense I've ever seen them put out there with Wemby at the centerpiece. Yeah. And it's beyond the eye test. The math test is now saying that this is what it is. Yeah. Spurs Moneyball is saying this. Here's the thing, Jeff. Do you know who I think would buy into Spurs Moneyball? Who's that? And by the way, I would like to trademark that phrase. Mitch Johnson.
Oh, I think he would too, yeah. Yeah, he's the newer generation guy.
Newer, younger guy who will look at this and go, maybe that's it. Because if we're looking at other pairings, I'll tell you this much, though. You take Wemby out, second unit. You give me a second unit of Vassell, Keldon, and Sohan, along with Malachi Branham. I could roll with that.
Yeah.
Because those pieces fit together very well, too. So what if Vassell's the highest paid Spur? It's all about Wemby anyway.
Yeah,
so I really like these other. I like and Sohan was somebody who came off the bench at Baylor anyway. He was a six man over there. Keldon Johnson was a six man at Kentucky.
Six man now. Yeah.
The six man now. It kind of makes sense to me. It just goes against conventional wisdom, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. We're talking with Mike Jimenez of the Alamo City Sportscast on YouTube. Follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. We're not done talking about these units on the court. What are the deeper numbers show? It's gonna be interesting. And I have not a disagreement, but something to point out. That second unit I mentioned, that might be right on the heels of the number one unit right now. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. You want to go to FanDuel.com right now. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. So much when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You just got to go to FanDuel.com right now. Speaking of FanDuel.com, look, the NBA season is also around the corner. Spurs fans, time to have some fun with your silver and black on the court. The app is very easy to get, very easy to use, user-friendly, very intuitive. Make your picks, 1, 2, 3. Bet on parlays, bet on win spreads, totals. I mean, seriously, you can have so much fun with sports this sports season with FanDuel. Again, America's number one sports book. You just got to get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Yeah, you'll get started with that. And when you place your first $5 bet, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Another reason why you got to go to FanDuel when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Go to FanDuel.com right now, America's number one sportsbook. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Mike Jimenez, who's here to cause chaos and bag on Sohan, as he always does.
Never.
That's what the streets say, Jimenez. That's what the streets say.
Dude, you're the one who stokes the fire of all that.
I don't stoke. Look, the yesterday's show you had with Joe Garcia, I mean, you were on one. You were on one. It's been a while since you were just like that rapid fire. Like, what is he talking about? That rolled down the avalanche. And it was calling out the people, well, the makeup of San Antonio and its residents.
My God.
It was flaunting your money.
I did not do that either.
How
I was correcting people.
How apparently you get recognized as a point guard because the way you pass balls, and you don't want to hurt Tim Duncan. I mean, seriously, you were just on one yesterday. He is Mike Jimenez. Follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste, and we're talking about lineups. What do the early sample size reflect? What are the better units out there on the court? Now, I have something to keep an eye out for, and that is that second best unit for the Spurs. Now, according to Pivot Fade, again, we mentioned it's Keldon Johnson, Champagnie, Chris Paul, Wembayama, and Branham. Again, no Vassell, no Sohan. Only 11 minutes together. Okay, fine. I think that unit can overtake the current one because if you dive deeper to the numbers, the top unit that has a offensive rating, of 131.2 and a defensive rating of 95.5. Phenomenal, really, really good. Yay, unit. But if this second unit, as we mentioned, with only played 11 minutes together, they could be hot on the trails. They are an offensive rating of 168.2 and a defensive rating of a 77.3. There's something in that second unit that could work well moving forward as the season goes on. And again, no Vassell, no Sohan in that unit.
Give me the names again. Give me the names again.
That is Keldon Johnson, Champagnie, Chris Paul, Wemby, and Branham.
Okay.
That's only 11 minutes together, so keep that in mind. And by the way, they're a plus 20.
Right.
Plus 20.
You know, you look at that lineup there.
Oh, by the way, Jimenez, I don't mean to cut you off, but their pace is just as good. The top one right now is at 99. It's not that much of a drop off. It goes down to 94. So there's something tasty about that one.
So the first lineup that we're talking about there, that's veteran leadership there with Harrison Barnes and CP3, and you have some veteran players out there. This other lineup over here that you're talking about there that includes a Keldon Johnson, a Julian Champagnie, a Malachi Branham. Those are streaky players, man. And we have seen those guys get super cold. I mean, we see games with Keldon Johnson where he looks like we forget that he's on the team. He goes off for 18, 19 points off the bench. We love him. And then there's some games where he's 2 for 11, 6 points, and we're like, why is he out there? The same thing could be with Malachi Branham. Malachi Branham had a stretch last season where he had a 4-week stretch where he looked really, really good, and then he was cold to end the season. Right now, he's doing pretty decently from 3. He's shooting okay. So he's streaky, but when he gets going, he gets going. And Champagnie of the 3 is the one that seems to be most consistent with his 3-point play. Those guys right there, I don't think could keep up that pace or keep up that offensive efficiency together. I think in times where the Spurs might be down points, where they're down 8 points, down 10 points, they need to get back into the game, catch lightning in a bottle type of thing. Vinny Johnson style from the Pistons, microwave some offense. That might be the lineup to do it with.
Yeah. I like that. Either lineup works well. Again, we got to keep it in mind too. It is a relatively small sample size still. The NBA season is still very young, but we're starting to see at least some light at the end of the tunnel, like what can work for the Spurs. Now, let's look at the lineup that does include Wemby and Sohan together. So that's when they played 26 minutes together, as mentioned. All right. Again, there could be something there. We don't know yet because Sohan's injury. Offensive rating 115.4, defensive rating 84.9. There's a trade-off right there. 84.9 because you got Wemby and Sohan on the court. The Popovich coaching tree, that they love defense. That may make them stick to that unit more often than not, Jimenez, because of that defensive rating. So, yeah, and I can see why they stick with those two guys, because defense wins games. And there's probably your answer right there. You have 2 of the better defenders on the roster. You put them out there together, chances are you're going to be locking up teams and get that W, Jimenez.
I 100% disagree.
Okay.
Defense doesn't win games anymore. That was the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Golden State blew that out of the water. Actually, the Spurs did originally back in 2014 with a beautiful game. 3 points is always worth more than 2. And so some of the disagreements that I have on Spurs Twitter right now is the fact that people say, well, Sohan is a better defender and Vassell is this, that, and the other. And I look at them and I go, right, but the trade-off for the defense is having more offense out there. And, I saw the stat the other day where they said like Sohan is holds primary offensive players to 35% shooting. And people are holding that in my face. And I'm like, yeah, but the trade-off is that he's offensively not good outside of 5 feet. And there's a trade-off when it comes to it. The teams that are winning right now are teams that are not only good defensively, but also can light it up from 3. And that goes to the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Celtics now, the Thunder. You light it up from three, and you play good defense. You got to do both. And when you look at a player and you tell yourself it's a trade-off, that's not a good thing, man. That's not a long-term solution to anything when it's a trade-off. That's why we're hoping that Stephon Castle has a better three-point shooting accuracy. And he's gotten better last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
Last 3 or 4 or 5 games, he's been playing well. Before the Oklahoma City game, he had 6 games in a row of double figures. He is now inserting himself into a candidacy for an all-NBA rookie first team. He's going to be an all-star weekend, right? He's going to be part of all that. He should be. He's on pace for that.
He is. Yeah, he's going to be there.
So I look at it, and I think right now you're going to see the best Spurs rosters are going to have the following players. They're going to have Wemby, obviously, because he's a 7'4" monster down low defensively. Yep. You're going to have Stephon Castle because of what he brings defensively and the way that he can attack the bucket, and he get more confident. LeBron praising him after the game.
Huge.
You're going to have Champagnie because Champagnie plays defense, and Champagnie can knock down threes at a high 30% clip. You're going to see those three. It's just who are the other two? Is it going to be CP3 and Sohan? Is it going to be CP3 and whoever? Champagnie, Castle, Wemby are the core of this team.
And I'll tell you this much, Jimenez, the Champagnie names getting thrown around, that's a big surprise for me so far this season, that how he's vital to pretty much any unit out there, like how key is, and because he can spread the floor. He's the only one that really can spread the floor. By the way, I want to push back on you too. I disagree with your disagreement because I know you said offense wins games this year, but the Thunder are proving that this defense still wins. They're tops in the NBA in defensive rating. They're holding teams down to about 100-ish, which is great for today's era of the NBA, and their record reflects it. But ultimately, I do agree with you in this aspect. It does come down to balance, and the Spurs are imbalanced right now. They're pretty good defensively. They're up there in some good defensive measurements, but offensively, that's where they stumble. Again, we're going to go to pivot fade Jimenez real fast, and you look at some of their offensive stats. Offensive rating 22nd in the NBA at 111.3. So that's where they fumble. Now, defensive rating, again, they're one of the best one. They're 11th in the NBA at 112.7. You see, the Thunder figured out how to balance it. They got solid defense, then proving that defense still wins. But if that's faulty, they have a good offense. The Spurs are just like this right now.
It is about balance, but part of it has to be about three-point shooting, and the NBA needs to change something about that because the three-point shot has become too easy. You look at some former Spurs players out there who were all-stars, who are dinosaurs now. If you were to put them in today's game, they wouldn't even be playing very well. We're talking about LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan. These are guys who were mid-range jumper specialists, within 15 feet were deadly. That is a dinosaur. It's an inefficient way of playing basketball these days because if you can light it up from 38 to 40% from three, that's always going to be a 50% shooter from two. It's always going to beat that. So whenever you say that I roast or I bag on Sohan or I say things about Vassell or whatever the case may be, it's not about them personally. It's not about any of that. It's just the offensive efficiencies. And now we look at it, and I go back in time. Last year, Sohan didn't play 6 games with Wemby. Wemby, his points per game went from 21 to 26.5. This year, it's gone from 18 to nearly 27. It's 13 games. I know it's a sample size of just 13 games. Vassell missed half of those games too. Wemby needs to be the focal point of this offense, and I think that so much attention was given to Vassell. So much attention's been given to Sohan when that should not be the case. It should be a trickle-down cascade effect from Sohan. Sohan has to be the guy shooting 24 attempts every single game.
You talking about Sohan or Wemby?
Wemby, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Wemby needs to be, thank you for correcting me. Wemby needs to be that guy 24 times a game, needs to shoot the ball, right? He needs to be the primary focus of this offense, and everyone else just surrounded with 2 different shooters, a guy that can pass, that can penetrate, and a ball facilitator, someone who can get on the ball where he needs it. It needs to be a Wemby-focused offense. And notice that when Sohan's not playing, when Vassell's not playing, and it's a Wemby-focused offense, lo and behold, the Spurs are playing better. Lo and behold.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Jeff, for what I do with Alamo City Sportscast and people who follow me at MJ Acquire Taste on Twitter, they bag on me about this, But now the sample size is getting greater and greater to the point where people are looking at me going, well, maybe Jimenez might have been onto something. They'll never say I was right, but they might say that I was getting onto something here. And it's not saying that Vassell's a bad player or I love Vassell's game. It's not saying that Sohan's a bad player because I love his intensity and I love what he brings to the team defensively. It's just, at the end of the day, this team is not about Vassell. At the end of the day, this team is not about Sohan. At the end of the day, this team is about Victor Wembanyama. I'm going to throw a second name out there. It's about Stephon Castle. Whatever you do to make those two players better, everything needs to funnel through those two guys. They have the highest ceilings out there. And you know what I like about Champagny? Dude's along for the ride. He knows his role. He knows I'm going to shoot if I'm wide open. And if I'm not wide open, I'm going to pass the ball and I'm going to go play some defense. So I'm loving Champagny this year. And I was not a believer, but I'm buying the stock because he's buying into his role. He's doing his role well. Those are the three guys Spurs need to focus on.
He is Mike Jimenez of Alamo City Sportscast, and we are discussing all things silver and black. So we just finished talking about what the numbers look like, the units look like. We need to hear from you. Let me know on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs right now on the YouTube side of things. And of course, Jimenez will be talking about his show along with Joe Garcia's in just a few seconds. But first, let's talk about Prize Picks. Hey, let's talk about Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get on the action in sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks invented the flex pay, which means you'll still cash out. If your lineup isn't perfect, you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Hey, look, Prize Picks is fun. It's simple. You'll enjoy having the experience of playing the game. I know I do. You will too. And yeah, download that Prize Picks app right now. Go use code LOCKEDONNBA and get yourself $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
This is Emilio Rivera, El Padrino for the Mayans MC. You are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Mike Jimenez of Alamo City Sportscast. And follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. Let him know if he might be flip-flopping or backpedaling right now when it comes to his Sohan takes. Because it just takes a little bit of a nudge, and then fans just dogpile you, man. They just dogpile you.
They just don't like that I'm right a lot. They just don't like that I'm right a lot.
You can put the weather stats for the day, and they'll be like, you see, you use those same stats against Wemby and Sohan. It's really hot outside, Jimenez. It's not 76 degrees. I mean, any little thing that Jimenez could do just erupts into fire on social media. But he's a good sport about it. And
I like it. The problem is that people want to have rose-colored, or in this case, black and silver colored glasses on. And I just look at it from a different perspective. I look at it from a different way. I look at it from an analytical perspective, and it's not me bagging. Maybe sometimes it is, but it's just it's just like I spot the trend a little bit faster than others, and they get mad.
There you go.
They get mad.
There you go. Popping your collar. Popping your collar. All right. Well, Spurs fans on Locked On Spurs YouTube page have been popping their collar when it comes to their takes on the silver and black. Now, it's been a while. We haven't talked to you guys in a few seconds, but let's go ahead and pick a couple of them and react to your comments. You guys are talking all things silver and black. All right. So the first one is from, let me look through the bag here. Okay. I don't know if we want to go that one. First of all, that was a bad one there. I'm going to have to Disney it up and just clean it up. Okay, so the first one comes from J Paris 889. Now he's talking about Wembyama here. He says, I think he's still not 100% physically, so it might explain why he is shooting so many threes and maybe avoiding the paint. I still hope he will rebalance his game later on. Thank you for that comment, J Perez. That's been a topic so far this season, is Wemby taking so many perimeter shots. Why is he not establishing enough in the paint? And there was chatter about his physical condition, and he talked about it too. Do you think Wemby has broken out of that already, the way he's been playing of late?
No.
Okay.
I think he's trending in the right direction, but the answer is no. We saw him earlier this season, the 3 games against the Rockets, getting pushed around by a much smaller Dillon Brooks. We saw other players that were big guys. I'm picturing one in my head, but the name has eluded me. But he's getting pushed around a little bit more. Wemby is bulkier than last year.
Yeah, he definitely is. Yeah,
and he's reasserting himself down low a little bit more often. So I think he's trending the right way. The weird thing about it is that we talk about the balance that's needed on offense and defense. The same thing needs to be said about Wemby when it comes to what he's bringing to the team offensively. He needs to spend just as much time down low as he does on the outside. Now, if he's shooting the ball like crazy and he's knocking down 3 after 3 after 3, like a blackjack table, you ride the hot hand until you bust, right? That's the thing that he should be doing. But he should not avoid being down low. The guy's 7'4". Develop some game down there, man. Develop a hook shot. Develop some sort of bank shot like Duncan did. He needs to develop that as well because you're 7'4". You're very rarely gonna get blocked. You have all the angles. All you need is better footwork, better positioning, better angling, and the Spurs have that type of experience on that team in the sense that you could always bring in Robinson, you could always bring in Duncan to come in and coach that type of aspect of the game. And I think if he gets more confident down low, it's going to improve his 3-point shot because he can do both. Get good at both, be elite at both. Don't just be a sharpshooter because at the end of the day, you're 7'4", man. At the end of the day, you're taller than everybody else. Yeah. Get down low.
Yeah. I do disagree with the commenter. I think as far as his physical set point is right now at this recording, I know he's banged up right now, but I think he broke out of that. I think he got the rhythm back. I don't, as much as I think it was maybe a fatigue issue, I think it's just a rhythm thing. A, because he did not play a lot in the preseason, almost not at all. B, there was new teammates that he had to get used to. CP3, even CP3 said, I'm still not used to playing with this kid yet.
Yeah.
There's Barnes, and then obviously, the emergence of Sohan, how they're trying to mix him into the mix. So I think it was just a bunch of things kind of colliding at one point to start the season. But you look at the numbers he's been throwing up lately. Just ridiculous. 50-point night against the Wizards. I know it was the Wizards, but still, he's connecting more often than not on threes. And yes, I agree with you. He is starting to establish himself a little bit more often in the paint, being a little bit more aggressive. I'm starting to see that. But I think he's broken out of that wall, and we're about to see Wemby just keep on being Wemby as the season moves on. All right, the next comment comes from JJ Giggity. I wonder where he got that last part from. He says, bleep, those are the worst City Edition jerseys in the entire league. And he's reacting to the Spurs' new City Edition jersey, where basically it's just an almost copy and paste job from last year. Sure, there's some differences, a little bit more color, different font, shading on there. But where do you stand on the new City Edition jerseys, Jimenez? I know I'm okay with them. They're not horrific, but they're not the best in the league. Now, I think the Spurs should have done one of the following things. One, brought back the white ABA jerseys. That has not been broken out. I think it would have meshed well with the NBA, with the Spurs NBA Cup court, which is just chef's kiss. It's just awesome. Or just simply go back to the throwbacks, the old black ABA ones, San Antonio. Just go back to those. So, and what throws me off in minutes is how the City Editions this year's don't match the NBA Cup court for the Spurs. That's what's throwing me off. Yeah.
Yeah, the City Edition, correct me if I'm wrong, they're the ones that look like Bill Miller's.
Yeah, basically. And for those of y'all that don't live in San Antonio, Bill Miller's like a fast food barbecue spot.
Yeah, and it looks like their logo. Seriously, it really does. It's funny. The people who buy those City Edition jerseys know that they're ugly. And I think that they wear them and they go, man, this looks awful. And they buy it anyway. So it's
I've been to the games already, Jimenez. People are wearing them.
People wear them. But what's funny about them is that they even pointed out, they're like, yeah, I can't believe I bought this ugly thing. And they pointed out, like you said, it doesn't go with the court. The jersey that would be any of the old throwback ones, or the Serape one, the Mexican blanket one, looks pretty good. Like it would go with that cord. Maybe it's too much dark.
Talk about the statement edition, because they're still wearing those.
Right, but that's probably my favorite of the jerseys, to be honest with you. I like that jersey a lot. But no, this is an awful looking jersey. It looks like something that is either kind of like a hybrid of Bill Miller's logo with old school Seattle Sonics colors. Just a weird mix. It doesn't look good. It never looked good.
No, what you're seeing everybody on the screen right now are last year's City Edition. But basically, you're seeing that right now on your screen is pretty much the same thing for this year.
I mean, is it supposed to be Native American inspired?
No, it's supposed to be 70s inspired. Old school 70s San Antonio inspired.
Yeah,
the roots of San
Antonio. Never did. We have the best colors in sports anyway, man. Silver and black with white. Yeah. Come on, man. Just roll with that. And even if you add
bring back the white ABA ones, man. I think those are fire.
Dude, if Alvin Robertson ever wore it, I want it.
No, geez, the white ones never get as much attention as they should. I think they deserve more attention. But hey, everybody, we thank you for leaving some comments. I know y'all left a bunch of them. Maybe we'll get a couple more the next episode of Locked On Spurs. He is Mike Jimenez. Follow him on X at MJ Acquire Chase. Tell us what's going on the YouTube side of things over at Alamo City.
Yeah, we're now up to 1,250 subscribers strong. We restarted the podcast back in January. It's been fun. We talk a lot of Spurs, a lot of Cowboys. Maybe not so much anymore. Cowboys suck. But the Houston Texans, Longhorns, all sorts of things, sports, pop culture, nostalgia, some tall tales, like Jeff's favorite one that I didn't want to hurt Tim Duncan. Can I tell that one real fast?
Go ahead.
Tim Duncan, when I was probably 25 years old or so, 23, 25 years old, showed up at a gym that I was at in the middle of the night with a bunch of NBA players. They wanted to run fives. They asked if I wanted to play, and I said no. It was racquetball and fitness. It's now a Gold's Gym in the medical center. I said no, not because, anything else other than the fact that I didn't want to be Zaza Pachulia. I didn't want to be the guy who had his foot out at the wrong place at the wrong time and have someone roll their ankle on mine and me be the reason for it. I remember rationalizing, going, dude, I ain't going to be the one that gets you hurt. You're the generational talent. I'm just going to watch. And I watched.
Point at you, Jimenez.
I watched and I decided, not going to happen. But what's funny is that, back in the day, middle of the night, racquetball and fitness, that was the place that NBA players would go. It was weird. Medical center, baby. Babcock.
That's right. You're a point guard, right? That's right. That's what the kid told you, right? You're a point guard.
Yeah, a point guard.
He knows you're a point guard.
He goes, dude has handles still.
God, on that note, he is Mike Jimenez. Follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste.
10 to 11:30. 10 to
11:30. That's right. 10 to 11:30. Make sure you go on the YouTube side of things. Just go on YouTube, search Alamo City Sportscast. You'll find it. Very easy to get. Subscribe, and you're good to go. Hey, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know where to go. Go subscribe right now. Hey, newsletter. Locked On Spurs newsletter. Description below. I'll put the link there for you. Easy to click on. Go free, sign up, all that good stuff. A nice little companion piece for Locked On Spurs. And we'll be back tomorrow talking all things silver and black. So for Mike Talltail Jimenez, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.